Welcome to Faith and Arrow Homestead. My name is Jaylee, and this is a day in the life of a homesteading YouTuber. I also do private home care on the side, and it's Monday morning. I just did an overnight shift with my patient. I straightened up the room, but I don't need to strip the bed because I also stay the night on Monday as well. So I will be coming back to this bed and sleeping in it. But on Tuesday morning, I strip the bed clean for the next person who's going to be staying. I'm also going to go ahead and get changed because I leave his house and go straight to Bible study. Bible study was lovely this morning. We discussed Sabbath and what it means to us. My group leader found a baby bird and she wanted me to try and save it. I told her I wasn't sure, but I'd give it a shot. It's funny, because I have chickens, everybody just assumes that I know things about birds. Lately, I've been separating my chickens because I have egg eaters. So I take the chickens that I know are eating the eggs and I take them out of the main run coop area to give the others some peace. And that's what you see me doing here. I'm actually picking out the chickens that I know are eating the eggs and I'm putting them out into the outer run area. Of course, I have to keep everybody watered, even those that are outside of the main coop run area. So this is the water that I've been using for that. So I'm just gonna fill that up and give that to them so that I know everybody is safe. Hopefully I'll get some eggs this day. All right, so while I'm working on all of this, I'm gonna go ahead and eat breakfast because the very first two things that I do on a typical day, I wake up and I spend a few quiet minutes in prayer and reading my Bible, and I did that already because I went to Bible study this morning. So the second thing that I do, and these things typically always happen back to back, I eat breakfast. You're supposed to eat breakfast within 30 minutes of waking up. I'm well beyond, I'm like 2.5 hours into my day at this point. But you know, it is what it is. So I am gonna go ahead and make some breakfast because for me, I can't get started with my tasks for the day until I have food in my belly because it balances my blood sugar, it helps my brain operate properly, and I just feel much more equipped to tackle my day when I have had breakfast. So let's come over to the stove. Yes, my cat is on the counter. Cheeto is in kidney failure and he drinks a lot of water. So anytime he is at a sink, we let him and we turn it on and let him drink out of it because he's a sick boy and we let him do what he wants. So the very first thing that I need to do is go out into the garden and pick some goodies for my breakfast. So let's go do that. Hey look, I have a cosmo that bloomed. I love how they smell. Cosmos are one of my favorite flowers. My garden is an absolute jungle right now, and I'm not gonna lie, I love it. As I'm looking at this, it just brings me so much joy. I love being out there. I love how overgrown it is. I know that sounds so silly, but honestly, it just brings me so much joy. I always saute up some basil and a pepper and I put it on my breakfast and it's so good. To start, I'm going to add some butter to my cast iron skillet, kind of push it around, let that melt. I'm going to add a sprinkle of my Redmond's real salt as well. This is my sourdough starter. You can see it's bubbly and active. I'm going to pour some of that into my skillet and spread it around. I'm going to make kind of a flatbread. While it's cooking, I'm going to be preparing my basil and pepper. You can't see it, but I'm over at the counter chopping that up. I'm going to flip my flatbread and then I actually push it around my pan, which I know looks kind of weird. What I'm doing, I'm actually trying to soak up all of that butter and salt and all that yumminess into my flatbread. I'm going to remove that, and then next I'm going to add fresh butter back to the pan. Let that melt. And then I'm going to add my basil and pepper that I prepared. sprinkle of black pepper as well. Of course, I have to add more butter to my flatbread. I'm not kidding you guys, I consume a lot of butter. Here we have my beef liver pate. I put a generous scoop of that onto my flatbread and spread it around. This is my favorite way of getting my daily intake of liver because the flavors blend so well with this breakfast. That is followed by feta cheese that I crumble. And then finally, my sauteed veggies go on top of that. Now, I reserve my butter for certain things, and frying my eggs isn't one of them. So instead, I add a bit of leaf lard that I keep in my fridge. I'm gonna put some of that into my skillet and let it melt. This is really excellent for keeping the eggs from sticking in my pan. I try my best to rotate my eggs by choosing the older ones to crack into my skillet. All right, now for my beverage. I always eat my breakfast with a glass of cold milk. This is raw, organic milk from a local farm. I pour it while I'm working on my breakfast, and then I put it in the freezer for a little while, and this helps it get nice and cold. Does anyone else like to put an ice cube in their cup of milk? I like my milk to stay super cold the whole time I'm drinking it, so I always put an ice cube in there. Plus it's whole milk, so even when the ice melts, it still is going to, the milk itself will still taste great and have a great consistency and everything. There are only 2 times the TV gets turned on, and it's during my breakfast. I'll watch a YouTube video. It's almost always Jess from Roots and Refuge. It's my chance to get caught up. And then in the evening, while Tom and I are eating dinner, we'll watch an episode of something. I really love this routine. I love that I've given myself permission to sit down and watch some TV, and it really helps me enjoy it and not feel guilty about it. And I'm being productive. I'm eating my breakfast that I just made. Unfortunately, our little bird friend passed on. I put him on the heat plate and tried to warm him up because he wasn't eating, and I thought maybe it's because he felt so cold. So I put him on the heat plate, and then I went and sat down and ate my breakfast, and when I went to check on him, he had passed on. So, you know, very sad, but at least it was here in our home and not alone on the pavement outside of the church. So I gave it the good old college try, and that's all you can do. Have any of you guys ever encountered this? Have you ever found baby birds and they lived, like you saved them? I'm not really sure. I didn't think that baby was gonna make it, and he fell from so high up. Our church has really big arches over the entrance, and I mean they're like higher than like a vaulted ceiling, like really high, and he fell from that nest all the way down to the pavement. So I kind of figured he wasn't gonna make it, but I tried. So anyway, that was interesting. So I ate my breakfast, I sat and watched a little bit of TV, I fooled with the baby bird, and now I have some tasks that I want to accomplish today. So my schedule, now that I've left the hospital, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday are my days off. I work tonight, I'm doing an overnight tonight, today's Monday, but I have the whole day to do what I need to do. So I have some things I want to accomplish. One of those things would be every weekend I make a couple loaves of bread. I was busy this weekend, so we're gonna do it today. So I use Lisa from the Farmhouse on Boone. I use her sourdough sandwich bread recipe. I've been using it for a long time now. It is an excellent recipe, and it has made some really tasty bread. So we're gonna go ahead and get that started. This is a sourdough recipe, which means it takes quite a bit of time to make because we need to give it the opportunity to ferment. And that's what makes sourdough so healthy. When you do the long fermentation, it's breaking down the gluten and making it, it's pretty much pre-digesting it for you. So it's healthier and easier for your body to digest and break down. So we're gonna go ahead and start with, I've got my stand mixer here, and I'm gonna put half a cup of coconut oil. Now the recipe says that you can use either softened butter or softened coconut oil, and I've done it both ways. Both ways has been very tasty, but I get my butter from a local farmer. It's not cheap, and it is really good. So I don't always use it in my bread because there's other things I'd rather use my really good butter for. So I use my coconut oil usually, unless I have like just an abundance of butter, which I pretty much never do. I use the coconut oil, and it still turns out really good. Next, you want 1 cup active bubbly starter. My starter actually isn't really all that active because I fed it yesterday, and then I just used some for breakfast. And it definitely needs to be fed. But you know what? It's fine. And honestly, I have found that it works. Really, the difference is how long it needs to ferment. If I had a really active bubbly starter, then I've gotten away with, the recipe says 10 hours. I've gotten away with just doing like 7 or 8 hours. But with this being not very active starter, I'll definitely need the full 10 hours, because basically what you have is the starter is like activating and then like breaking down. And I had just enough. I had a cup. And I try to, because I usually only feed my starter enough to make my flatbread in the morning, because I'm really the only one that like actively uses it in the house. So whenever I know I'm going to be making bread, I feed it more so that I'll have the volume that I need to have some for breakfast and then still make my bread. And as you saw, I just barely had enough. Now, if you are new to sourdough, this is my sourdough container, and I emptied it out. This is still fine. I'm going to add flour and water back to this, and it's going to activate and survive just fine. You only need the teensiest, tiniest amount of sourdough starter to keep it going. And so the fact that I've got this whole bottom of this, the whole inside of this container, that's perfectly fine. So we're gonna do 2 tablespoons of sugar. It does say that you can use honey, and I would, except honey, like butter, I have just enough of for certain other things, and this is not something that I'm going to sacrifice it for. So now we're gonna add 1 tablespoon of salt. This recipe is so easy. Next, we're going to do 2.5 cups of water. It doesn't have to be any particular temperature. I always just use my reverse osmosis water from my faucet here. Okay, and then the last ingredient is the flour, and she does specifically say in her recipe that she likes to leave it for last because, and this is true for most bread recipes, the amount of flour is not always exact, especially when you were doing sourdough, because depending on how active versus not active your sourdough starter is, and how wet your starter is, kind of depends on the amount of flour that you need to add. I will say that it has varied a cup one way or the other. Sometimes I do 8, sometimes I do like 7, 7.5, sometimes I do like 8.5. And I don't know, it really just depends. I haven't exactly gotten to the bottom of that, figured out exactly why. But usually what I'll do is I'll go ahead and put in 6 cups of flour, just right off the muscle, mix it together, and then I have a pretty good idea from there how much more flour I'm going to have to add. We're probably going to have to fill up our flour. Yeah. Which is cool, because then when I'm going to fill up my flour, I will also fill up my sugar. Now, I am not exact when I measure this at all. I literally just kind of scoop it. And I don't pay much mind to making sure that it's exact, because once you've made bread a few times, you know what you're looking for. You know what you want your dough to look like and feel like. And so I don't bother. I use the 1 cup measuring cup, and I have like a rough idea, but see, this was 4, I think. This is probably about 5. Let's get this mixed together, and then I'll go fill up my flour. I keep both my flour and my sugar in these 5-gallon food grade buckets, and then I have these Gamma lids that on them, and they're really, I love them. It's been over a year now that I've been operating with this system, and it works so well. It keeps everything in there super fresh. It's so easy to get to it. The Gamma lids screw on and off, so I'm not having to pry anything off of the bucket, and it's really convenient. I like this a lot. I purchased both the buckets and the lids from Azure Standard. I'm gonna go ahead and add 2 more cups and see where we're at. Whoop! Hello. All right, let's take a look here. So this is still decently sticky. Let me see here. I got decisions to make here. Yeah, I think it's worth adding. I think it's worth adding like a half more cup to this and letting it go for another minute. Here's the thing though, if it is right on the border, if I think that I could get away with not adding more flour, then I will grease a bowl, put it in there, let it rise, and do its ferment over the next 10 hours. And then when it's done and it's time to shape it into the loaves, I'll just put down a generous amount of flour and work it in, and usually that's enough to combat the stickiness. But this is just sticky enough. It could really go either way, but I think it's sticky enough that it's worth adding a little bit more flour. I'm gonna add half a cup, but that's what I mean when it comes to like measurements. And I know that people freak out when it comes to sourdough. Like they wanna know exact measurements, they wanna know the weight of the ingredients that are going in. Like, it's not that serious. It's really not. And I've ended up with some really delicious loaves of sourdough. So this one was a 7.5 cupper. So you don't always need the full 8 cups, and that's why Lisa recommends adding it last, adding the flour as the last ingredient, because that gives you the best bet of like knowing, like being able to tell, like, do I need more flour? Do I not need more flour? Like, beautiful. I love making bread. It's one of my absolute favorite things to do. And now that I have a little bit more time on my hands because I'm finished at the hospital, I really have been wanting to, I have 2 things really high on my list. I want to learn how to make like your artisan, stereotypical, like with the designs on top, like loaves of sourdough bread that you see on Instagram. I tried when I first got into sourdough, and it did not, they tasted good, but they didn't look like what I wanted. But I think it's one of those things that just comes with time and practice. So I really want to do that, and I really want to learn how to make bagels, because Tom really likes bagels, but I try really hard not to buy things from the grocery store if I can help it. And so I have purchased them for him a couple of times recently, but I'd like to just know how to make them myself, and then I can also eat them. Normally I just leave it and I let it rise right in the mixing bowl. We have another recipe we're gonna make here in a second, and I had thought that I wanted my stand mixer for it, but I decided I'm just gonna use my hand mixer instead. So I'm just going to cover this with a clean towel, and in the summertime, what I do with my rising bread, I put it out in my breezeway. This is a like I don't know, like a Four Seasons room, or it's fully enclosed and it's got windows and doors, but it's not temperature controlled, and here we call them breezeway. And so it is always warm out in here. It doesn't get like disgustingly hot or anything, but it's warm, and so it definitely speeds up the rise process and usually cuts a little time off of it. I don't know if it will this time because my starter wasn't very active, but I'm just gonna leave this out here. I'm gonna set a timer on my stove. Let's do 9 hours, and then it reminds me to fool with this, you know, when it's done rising. I'm gonna clean up in here a little bit, and then we will move on to the next project.
Let me show you guys how I feed my sourdough starter. It's pretty fun. So, I've got my bowl. We discussed how just having the little bit that's in here is fine. So depending on what I need it for, tomorrow I'm not going to need much, just enough for my breakfast. Wednesday, I'll need some. So tomorrow morning, I'll give it a good feed. But today, I only need to give it enough to make my breakfast flatbread. So I'll put in, I just eyeball it. I don't know, however much I think I'll need for my flatbread. That looks good. And then some water. And I get it all mixed up. And you're looking for it to be kind of like pancake batter is what I've always heard. But I've had it be so many different. I've had it be spot on. I've had it be runny. I've had it be like a really thick paste. It always works. The sourdough bacteria always take over the flour. It always bubbles. It's never ever a problem. This is real thick, so I'll probably add just a little bit more water. Sourdough is so easy, and once you get a feel for it and get comfortable with it, it's really so very easy to manage. I really recommend it if you aren't already doing sourdough. I recommend it because it's just got so many health benefits, and it's so good. And I love bread. Like, I cannot cut bread out of my life. I absolutely love bread. And so if I'm going to consume bread, I might as well have it be nutritious in some way and not just have it be empty carbs, you know? And there's so many delicious recipes that you can make with it. Now I want to go check and see if we have any eggs. And it's 11 o'clock almost. Sorry, I'm trying to do everything kind of like one-handed here. And so the majority of the eggs that are going to be laid today should have been laid. Because I'd like to let the other chickens out of the run as well so that they can all be out and enjoy some time together. They like to dust bathe out there and stuff. And I've got a huge pile of scraps that I would like everybody to get some of. But I just have to come out here and see where we're at with egg laying. And hopefully we've got some eggs out here. Let's look. Let's look. Okay, well, somebody laid an egg out here, one of my egg eaters. That's cool. Oh, thank you. And they didn't eat it either, so that's nice. It was one of the Rhode Island Reds because it's a brown egg. So there's one. Let's check in here. See what we got. Oh, hello. Do you have any eggs underneath you? No, there's no eggs in there, so come on, guys. Okay, well, that kind of sucks because I wanted to let them out together. But I might still just go ahead and do a trial run and see, because this is the 4th day of me separating them, and one of them laid an egg and didn't eat it. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and let them out together and just take my chances and see what happens. All right, a couple of things. First, I want to think about my butter for this recipe. It takes 1 cup of butter, this recipe. And as you know, this is, I get this big thing of butter, but I get this every other Tuesday. So this thing of butter hardly, just barely, not even lasts me the 2 weeks that I have it. I consume so much butter, and then when you start adding baking projects into it, I go through this way too fast. I cannot wait for the day I am blessed with a dairy cow. But you know what? It is situations like this that will help me appreciate it when I have it. So I digress. I do purchase, when I go to the grocery store, because there are a few things I purchase from the grocery store, I always buy a box of Kerrygold butter. I really like Kerrygold. And so 1 stick is half a cup. So here's half my requirement of butter. The other half I am going to use out of my nice butter because I do want to use my butter. And I definitely want to use some of it for this recipe because we are going to make something for my handsome Tom. My handsome Tom has had a really rough, honestly, a little while, but this past week especially was really hard. It was our friend, but it was his high school friend who passed away. I mentioned it in another video, the passing of our friend. And we went to the calling hours a couple days ago. It's just been a really tough time, and he's working a lot right now. And it's just one of those times when, you know, when you are in tune with your significant other and you really love your significant other, you feel their energy, and I can feel his energy, and I know that he's hurting and is just going through a really tough time. So to remind him that I'm here for him and that I love him and support him, I'm going to make his favorite cookie, which are snickerdoodles. He loves snickerdoodles. And I also very much enjoy them, but I don't make them very often because honestly they can be a bit of a pain, but it's worth it for my sweet honey. So I want to use good quality ingredients for him because I want these cookies to be good, and I want them to represent my care for him. And so of course we want them to have quality ingredients. Kerrygold butter is a really good butter, but I want to use some of my really quality butter as well. So I put some in here. It's always so hard to tell, so I scoop in what I think is the amount, and then I melt it in the microwave, and then I'll see, you know, if I need to add more. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Yeah, so my guess was definitely not enough. So what I'm gonna do, because I don't really like microwaves, and I definitely don't like microwaving my organic grass-fed local butter, so I'm just going to throw a little bit more in there. I like to go a little above the half just to account for any. And then I'm going to put, this was in the refrigerator, so it's definitely cold, and I'm going to chop it in half. And then here's what I do when I need my butter to be melted or softened, but I don't want to put all of it in the microwave or microwave it for too long. I turn my oven on low, put my cast iron skillet on the burner that's on low, and then set this in my cast iron skillet. And the low heat from the skillet, from having the burner on low, will melt this. Of course, I have to keep an eye on it, and if you choose to do that, please be careful. Keep an eye on it. I have it in Pyrex glass, so even if it does get hot, it should be okay, but keep an eye on it. Now, before we continue on with these cookies, I wanted to get the butter going, but I have added something new to my diet, and I'm actually going to talk about this extensively in another video that I'm going to film probably on Wednesday. I have added an adrenal cocktail to my diet. And I really like it and highly recommend it. So we're going to go ahead and make one because I usually have one around this time, 10:30, 11, 11:30, somewhere in there. And it's about 11 right now. And I have been doing this for a couple of weeks now. And like, as I'm talking about it, my mouth is watering. Like, my body wants it. And that's how I know that it is a good thing that I have in my diet. I'm not going to talk too much about the benefits right now because I am going to talk about it extensively in another video, but I'll quickly show you. I have organic orange juice, 100% juice, cold pressed, organic. This is so expensive. This little bottle is $11, but it's worth it. I really, really like it. And I just have one of these every day. And then I haven't opened this one yet. I have organic coconut water. This Harmless Harvest brand is really good, and it's so tasty. And I used to measure, I don't really anymore. I just kind of eyeball it. And then you want more orange juice than coconut, like a 70-30 ratio. And then I put in a pinch of salt. Oh, I filled this baby up to the top. And then I put in a sprinkle of cream of tartar. I got this cream of tartar off Amazon after reading the reviews because I wanted to make sure I was getting what was advertised. So got a really good cream of tartar, and then I just give it a good mix. Your salt is not going to really like dissolve or anything. So it can be a little gritty. I don't mind. My body has come to enjoy these so much that like they could taste less good than they do and I would still drink them, but they do happen to taste really good. So good. I love those. You may have heard of adrenal cocktails. You may have seen it kicking around Instagram or have heard other YouTubers talk about them. Oh, no regrets on my end. I absolutely love having them in my daily routine and have seen a difference since I started drinking them. So keep an eye out for that video. The video is basically going to be me. I have one of these videos out already. It was a video titled something along the lines of what I've added to my diet since cutting out seed oils, and I filmed it like last year, a long time ago. I liked the content in that, what I talked about. It was good stuff. But I can do it again now because I have even more that I've added to my diet since being on this whole food journey. And so I have new things, and this Adrenal cocktail is one of them. So keep an eye out for that video. We're going to talk more about them, why you should drink them, what they offer nutritionally, etc., etc. This is the hardest time of the day for me. It's almost 11:30 now. I start to lose motivation, and my mind starts to get very like, let's sit on the couch and scroll Instagram, which is what I just did for the last 10 minutes. So now what I've done is I can't start these cookies because I bring Tom lunch every day, and I have to start thinking about that, and I won't have time to do the cookies before that. So I sabotaged myself, and I'm working on that. But you know what? This is my second week being out of the hospital, and I'll get there. I'll find my rhythm and my flow, but I am trying to be more disciplined with myself when my brain is like, let's scroll social media, because I have to say no. I have to be like, there are things I could be doing. I don't need to be doing that, and I need to stay focused. I want to be able to give myself some downtime, and I want to be able to relax, but I've got to make sure I'm also accomplishing what I need to accomplish as well. So it's a balance. Let's go ahead and get Tom's lunch. I just bring him a smoothie. It's pretty easy. He really likes it. I did show you how I make these in another video, and I don't think that they've changed much since then, so I'll do this really quick. I put a whole banana in there. That's really the bulk of this smoothie, comes from the banana, because it's all he eats for lunch. So I like to really bulk it up and make sure that it's got good stuff in there. I buy frozen diced avocado. I also buy avocados, so it really just depends on what I'm doing, but I do have a half an avocado here that I ate the other half as a snack yesterday and then didn't finish it, so I'm just going to put that in here, I think, instead of using my frozen ones, because I don't want to waste. Next, I have a bag of organic frozen cut spinach, and then I've got some whole cranberries that I get from the store, and I put a few of those in. A new bag of organic strawberries. Usually I have milk kefir made, but I used it all the other day and I have not made another batch, so I don't have any milk kefir. But I do put a splash of coconut water. I don't put a lot of coconut water in there because I use my coconut water, but I like for him to get some of that nutrition as well. And then this is a half-gallon milk from my local farmer, and I have not opened this half-gallon yet, so I'm shaking it to try to distribute the cream in there so it's more of a whole milk, because again, I want Tom's smoothie to be creamy. That's kind of what I'm going for. Nobody likes a watery smoothie. And I put quite a bit of milk in there. I've got some ground flaxseed here, and I put some of that in there for him. And then sometimes I'll put a raw egg yolk in there. I hadn't been for the longest time because I wasn't getting eggs from the girls because they were eating them, and I needed all of my eggs. But now that they're doing better, I think I'm going to put one in there. By the way, my butter is melted, so I can take that off my pan. So I crack my egg right over my cast iron skillet. I cook the egg white, I give it to Benny, and then I put the egg yolk right in his smoothie. I'm not sure, because I feel like some people do eat the white and the yolk. I'm not really sure. For some reason, the white part just really freaks me out. Even when I'm cooking eggs, like I like my eggs to be over medium. That means that I like the yolk runny, but I want the white cooked. The white just freaks me out. I don't know why. And so I just always give Tom the egg yolk. I don't give him the egg white. I cook the egg white and I give it to Benny, like I said. So that's pretty much it. That's what I put in his smoothies. This is pretty, occasionally I'll put a scoop of peanut butter in there. But this is pretty much it. So I've got my Ninja blender. So the way it works, this is one of the cups that it comes with. This is the blade, and it screws right on top. Although I filled it up a little too full, so let's see if I can get it in here. And so then you flip it over, this hooks right in. Now the sound of the blender gives me anxiety. I cannot stand it. It like literally almost sends me into a panic. So I keep earplugs in my silverware drawer. I do this every day because I bring him a smoothie every day. And so I'll pop my earplugs in quick, and then there's a smoothie button. I don't think I was recording. His smoothie's done. It's not quite time for us to go yet. I stuck it in the freezer. I like to go ahead and make it when it starts to get close to time for that, because I have forgotten him before. I have forgotten to bring him lunch. Like, the time just gets away from me, and he'll be like, you coming? And I'm like, ah! So I like to just have it made and ready to go. So right now it's in the freezer. We have a few minutes, though, before we have to leave, so I'm going to go ahead and get the dry ingredients together for these cookies. So in a small, medium-sized bowl, I went ahead and put 3 cups of all-purpose flour. I am going to have to refill my flour thing again. We've got 2 teaspoons cream of tartar. And I was reading, I went through a few different snickerdoodle recipes. I don't have one yet that I've really settled on. I was reading the comments, and people like to try to get out of using the cream of tartar, and I don't really understand why. That's not clear to me. But you definitely want to use cream of tartar in snickerdoodles, because that's what gives them their quintessential, like, tangy snickerdoodle flavor. So use the cream of tartar. I'm not really sure why people are hesitant to do that. Half a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and then 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And obviously that one doesn't have to be exact. If you want a little more or a little less, go for it. I'm just going to give that a little whisk. All right. I think I'm going to go ahead and grab Benny. So before, when I was working at the hospital, I would stop and bring him his smoothie on my way to work, because my shift started at 12:30 and he goes to lunch at 12. So I would leave here around 11:45, give him his smoothie, give him a smooch, and go to work. But now that I don't work at the hospital anymore, I'm able to actually stay and have lunch with him. And I always bring Benny with me, because he loves to see him, and his coworkers always see my car and stop over to see if I have Benny, and I think it's so fun. So I'm probably going to pack myself a little snack, and we are going to head over and give Tom his smoothie. I think your dad is here. I think your dad is here. Gonna say hi to your dad? Who is that? Who is that?
Hi, Bob.
Look at
How
the
you
butt.
doing? Oh, hi.
Hi.
Oh, how you doing, babe?
Well, hello, handsome.
Hi.
Look at you. Come sit with me.
Were you gonna park somewhere?
Sure.
Okay. You should,
All right, let's keep on with these cookies. So in my big mixing bowl, I have 1 1/4 cup granulated sugar, and then I've got my 1 cup of butter, which is now melted because I went outside to mess with the chickens and left it on the stove, and it's like all the way melted, but that's fine. And we're going to cream the butter with the sugar. Next, we're gonna add a splash of vanilla extract, 1 large egg. We'll mix that together. You know what, I realized that I did make a mistake on this. I had salted butter and I added salt. So there's too much salt in these cookies. So always be careful with that. If you are using unsalted butter, add salt. If you're using salted butter, don't add salt. But it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's just, you know, you want your cookies to turn out the best that they can, and that's something to keep in mind. So now I'm gonna add some of my dry mixture and then mix it together. Okay, and I'll add the rest. This is a pretty coarse and crumbly dough, and that is normal. So at this point, I just preheated my oven to 375 degrees. Now, with a classic snickerdoodle cookie, you roll the dough in a cinnamon sugar mixture. So let's go ahead and do that. I just like to get kind of a wide, flat Tupperware container. And we're gonna add 1/4 cup of sugar and a teaspoon of cinnamon. Because my whisk is already dirty, I don't need to get out a fork or anything. I'm just gonna kind of use my whisk to get it combined. I've got a cookie sheet here that already has a piece of parchment in it. And so I'm going to, let's see, I'll use my butter spoon here to make a little bit of a ball. Roll it in your hands, roll it in the cinnamon sugar, and place it on your cookie sheet. That one's kind of big. I probably won't make them that big. Perfect. Okay. So I'm just going to go through here and do that to all of this. I've got my oven preheating to 375. And I will probably bake these for around 10 minutes. I'll probably check them around 8 minutes just because my oven runs hot. So I always tend to check things on the early side, but I imagine probably 10 to 12 minutes for these. So really quickly, these are fresh out of the oven. And one thing I like to do with my snickerdoodles is come through and just kind of like press them down when they're fresh out of the oven, because I do like my snickerdoodles to be kind of more flat. So I just very quickly come through and press them down when they're right out of the oven and they're still super soft. And that makes them look more like what I expect a snickerdoodle to look like instead of these puffed up versions. Let's try one of these snickerdoodles. By the way, 8 minutes is what I needed, and the bottoms are even a little brown. This is not a good example. This one's extra brown because this one wasn't on the parchment paper. This is what the rest of them look like. So 8 minutes. My oven runs so hot. You know, I should probably start like decrease, like if the temperature says 375, do 350, because my oven runs so hot. But anyway, all right, let's try this. Still nice and soft and chewy. Snickerdoodles are Tom's favorite cookie, but I will say that like they're right up there for me too. They're so good. It's such a good cookie. We are expecting storms and it looks like they are on their way. It's looking pretty dark. So for the second half of this day, what I have going on, I have to work tonight. I don't go in until 9 p.m. because I'm just doing an overnight, so I'm doing 9 to 7 in the morning. I do grocery shopping and some cooking for my patient on Monday. So I'm gonna go to Aldi's and I have a grocery list of some things I'm going to purchase for him, and then I have a few recipes that I'm going to be making, and I'll tell you what they are, but I'm not gonna show them to you. I'm making him a cottage pie, which is similar to shepherd's pie. So shepherd's pie is using lamb and cottage pie uses ground beef. So that's the difference. So I'm making him a cottage pie. I'm making him mashed potato cakes, but I'm not gonna make them into cakes yet. I'm just going to mix them all together, mix the ingredients together in a big bowl, and then keep it in the fridge so that whoever's working with him can turn them into potato cakes. And I'm going to serve it to him with a poached egg on top for breakfast in the morning. And then I'm also making him peanut butter raisin energy balls for snacks because he's a snacker. And I like to have healthy snacks available to him, so he's not reaching for, you know, the non-healthy things in the pantry. So that's what I'm doing for the second half of the day. Tom supposedly has kickball. Tom is on a kickball league. I used to be, but honestly, I'm not really into team sports. They stress me out. But I like to go watch him. And a lot of my friends are on the team, so I like to see them. But it's about to storm. It's thundering right now. And if it is thunderstorming, they'll cancel. If it's just raining, they'll play, but it's thundering, so we'll see. That's at 6 o'clock, and it's like 2:30 right now, I think. So hopefully I can get everything done before then so that if they do go play, I can go. But I will say that the cooking is my responsibility, and if I'm not done in time to go to kickball, then I just won't. I don't have to. I just like to go say hi to everybody. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm thinking I'll probably go ahead and end this. I just don't feel comfortable. I guess I could film my cooking for him, but it just feels weird because it's not for me, it's for somebody else. Just feels wrong, so I'm not going to this time, but you know what I'm making, so there are the ideas if you'd like. Can't wait to give Tom a snickerdoodle. Maybe I'll film that, surprising him with them. He loves them. I haven't made them in a long time. But yeah, that's pretty much a day in my life right now. I'm still trying to find my rhythm and my routine because I'm still getting used to being out of the hospital. Like normally I'd be at the hospital right now. So I'm still trying to figure that out. And then also I'm trying to have good willpower and determination because it's really hard when there's nobody telling you what to do or that motivation isn't there. Like it's just you trying to convince yourself to do these things. It sounds silly, but it's hard. Because it's so easy to just sit on the couch and look at my phone or watch TV, but that's not what I left the hospital to do. I really stepped out in faith in that, and now it's time for me to live up to that. So if I'm going to do it, then I need to do it and not sit on the couch and scroll TikTok or whatever. So, but I think we've been productive today. Oh, I guess the only other thing that I need to show you, we need to finish the bread. So we'll do that. I'll come back and I'll show you the bread. I'm gonna finish that up tonight before I leave. I keep a loaf and I give a loaf to my patients. So I will show you that, and that's how we'll finish this up. Thanks for hanging out with me today, you guys. This has been really fun. This is my first A Day in the Life video. So I'm actually way ahead of schedule on this bread because when we were finished with the cookies, I put the bread in the hot oven and it exploded. It is more than doubled in size. So we can go ahead and proceed. The first thing I like to do though is actually prepare my bread pans because I don't want to fool with them when I'm dealing with the dough. I want to be able to just put it right in. So I have 2 glass Pyrex bread containers and I use coconut oil. So I just put a little on my fingers and I run it along the inside. I have never, in all of my time baking our bread, I've never had a loaf stick. They always come right out. And I've always either done butter or coconut oil, but like I said earlier, I try to really reserve my butter for, you know, baking or cooking because I want to be able to have that really quality butter flavor. So I'm definitely not going to waste it on a bread pan when I have perfectly good coconut oil. All right, let's move these out of the way. I've got a clean work surface here. I went ahead and cleaned this. I'm gonna put down a little bit of flour. Oh, it's so pretty. Beautiful. And then it always sticks, that's normal. So I just go through with my fingers and get as much of it out as I can. All right, and then it's been so long since I've looked at Lisa's recipe because I've made this so many times now. I don't remember exactly what she says to do here, so I'm just gonna show you what I do. And that is I work in the little bit of flour that I have on the counter, and I pretty much always need to because my dough is, I usually err on the side of a little sticky because I'd rather be able to add a little bit of flour as I go because you can't take any away, but you can add. So usually I just kind of, as you can see, I'm just kind of pulling into the center as I go, and this is feeling pretty good. Probably could use a little bit more flour. You want it to still be a little sticky. You don't want to totally get rid of the stickiness. And then once I feel good, I move the flour to the side. And then you don't have to build tension, and honestly, I think I only do this because I enjoy it. I like how it feels, but I do go ahead and kind of just do some turns on my counter, and it just makes it so smooth and so pretty, and I just enjoy the process. So is it necessary? No, but I like doing it. So pretty. And so then, because we're doing 2 loaves, where is my little bench scraper? Love my bench scraper. I'll have this linked down in the description. Such a convenient tool. So you're just going to cut this in half. It doesn't have to be super even. It pretty much never is for me. And then just put one of them off to the side. And then I do the exact same thing. I kind of build some tension, probably unnecessarily, but I like doing it. And then I kind of start to press it down and flatten it out. I use the heel of my hand to just kind of preemptively flatten it, and then I get out my rolling pin and roll it gently into a rectangle. I'm pretty gentle here because with all of my turning and whatnot, I have bubbles in here, and I like my sandwich bread to sometimes have bubbles. I just think it makes it really authentic, and it gives it that homemade feel, and I really like it. So I'm gentle when I roll it out because I don't want to pop the bubbles that are in here. So just kind of a rough rectangle, and then you want to fold it up. And mine always sticks because like I said, like to have mine be kind of on the sticky side. So I just use my bench scraper as I go to help it along. And you just keep rolling it up. And then the ends end up being skinny and the middle ends up being kind of fat. So I tuck the ends in. And it's really easy to work with and really easy to shape. So I tuck the ends in and under, and then I just and you got a loaf. So I'm gonna use, actually I think this was the bigger of the two pieces. So you just kind of gently lift it, trying to keep the integrity, the shape, and then while keeping the ends tucked, I just kind of throw it in there into the loaf pan. Just like that. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the other half. All right, you guys. So the way that this works for me when I'm making the bread, it almost always ends up that I'm doing the second rise while I'm making dinner. So the oven is preheated, the stovetop is on, something like that. So I almost always end up putting these stovetop to do the second rise, and you're supposed to let them rise 2 to 4 hours, but again, it's super dependent on your environment. So if you put them somewhere warm, they're going to rise a lot faster, and you want them to do the second rise because this is when they really start to look like a loaf of bread. I can almost always get mine to rise almost to the top, and then they puff up further when they're in the oven being baked, and then I end up with this really pretty domed loaf of bread, which is what I want. I want it to look like sandwich bread. I want it to look like a slice of bread. So I'm going to put these on the stovetop and let them rise for however long it takes for them to get to the size that I want them to be.
Hello, Editing Jaylee here. So what ended up happening was I did go to kickball with Tom. The ref ended up being 45 minutes late to the game, and I rode with Tom. So I was not able to leave until the game was finished. And the game starts at 6:15, so it didn't start until almost 7. And so the game is about not quite an hour, let's say 45 minutes. So it finished around 7:45. We were about 20 minutes from home. So I get home, it's about 8 o'clock. I had a half an hour because I have to leave at 8:30 to get to my patient's house at 9. I did not have enough time to bake this bread. So I ended up taking it with me and baking it at my patient's house in his oven. And I didn't film it. I didn't feel comfortable. So I baked it at 375 for about 45 minutes. I think I actually ended up baking it for more like 35, 40 minutes because I was unsure of his oven and it looked really brown on top. So just kind of use your discretion. You want it to be golden brown on top, and then when you tap it, you want it to sound hollow, and that's how I know that it's finished baking. So that's what I ended up doing. It's been a week now that I'm editing this since I filmed this. All of the food that I made for him, he really, really liked, and that was a really successful day. I was really happy with all of the work that we got done that day. This was my first A Day in the Life video, and as I'm sitting here editing it, there's room for improvement because it's definitely pretty long and drawn out, but my first one, so I'm happy with how it turned out, and I'm excited to do more of these in the future. They're a lot of work because it's a lot of filming and it's a lot of editing, but they're fun because I think you know, when you're following somebody on YouTube and you're getting these little tidbits that they give you when they film, it's fun to have a whole day to really get an idea for their routine and their rhythm. And I know I really like watching them from other YouTubers that I follow. So I hope you enjoyed this. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today through all these various tasks. I can't wait to see you in my next video. Have faith, my friends, and keep moving forward. Bye.